It was December 24th, 2025 at 2:47 a.m. when a crushing weight of spiritual burden I couldn't name drove me to the ancient mountaintop overlook 3 miles above my home, and there, surrounded by the pre-dawn darkness that made the valley below disappear into an abyss of shadow, while the first whispers of orange and crimson began bleeding across the eastern horizon, Jesus materialized beside me on that windswept stone ledge and spoke words that shattered everything I thought I understood. The next 5 days will determine the eternal trajectory of millions of souls, and most of my church is asleep. Not everyone who sees this message is meant to see it. Some will scroll past, some will ignore it. But you've been marked. You've been marked to hear this. Before I go any further, I need you to do something. Drop your prayer request in the comments right now. I don't care how long it is. I don't care how impossible it seems. There's a reason you're watching this at this exact moment, and I promise you, I read every single one. And if this message resonates with your spirit, if something inside you is screaming that you need to hear what's coming, subscribe to this channel and turn on notifications. This is for true believers only, not the lukewarm, not the comfortable, not those who want their ears tickled. This is for the remnant who are hungry for truth, no matter how much it costs. Some of you know me as Jonathan Roumie, the actor who portrays Jesus in The Chosen, but what I'm about to share with you has nothing to do with scripts or cameras or production schedules. This is real. This is raw. This is what happened to me on a mountaintop while most of the world slept, and I'm still trembling as I record this because the weight of what I witnessed hasn't left my shoulders. The temperature that night was brutal, 38 degrees with a wind that cut through my jacket like it wasn't even there. I hadn't planned to climb that mountain. I'd gone to bed at 11, exhausted from the day, but at 2:15 a.m. I jolted awake with a sense of urgency so overwhelming that I couldn't breathe. My chest felt compressed, like invisible hands were squeezing my lungs. I got out of bed thinking maybe I was having a panic attack, maybe I'd eaten something that disagreed with me, but as I stood there in the darkness of my bedroom I heard it, not audibly, not with my physical ears, but unmistakably. Come up higher. Those 3 words reverberated through my entire being. I knew, don't ask me how, but I knew with absolute certainty that I needed to go to that mountaintop overlook. I'd been there dozens of times. It's one of my favorite places to pray, to think, to get away from the noise of life. But I'd never gone in the middle of the night. Never at 2 a.m. in December when the temperature was below 40 degrees and the wind was howling. I got dressed in the dark. Thermal layers, heavy jacket, boots. I didn't tell anyone where I was going. I just grabbed my keys and drove up that winding mountain road, with my headlights cutting through darkness so thick it felt alive. The drive normally takes 20 minutes, but that night, time felt strange, elastic, like I was moving through something heavier than air. When I reached the trailhead parking area, mine was the only vehicle. The half-mile hike to the overlook was treacherous in the dark, even with my flashlight, loose rocks, tree roots across the path, the sound of my own breathing loud in my ears. But with every step, that sense of urgency grew stronger. Whatever was calling me up that mountain wasn't going to wait. I reached the overlook at exactly 2:47 a.m. I remember because I checked my phone, thinking maybe I should text someone to let them know where I was in case something happened. But before I could type a single word, the air around me changed. Have you ever experienced a moment where the atmosphere becomes charged? Where you can feel electricity on your skin, where every hair on your body stands up? That's what happened. The wind, which had been howling seconds before, suddenly stopped. Completely. The silence was so profound it hurt my ears. And then he was there. I didn't see him appear. He was simply present, standing at the edge of the overlook, gazing out at the valley below. The eastern horizon was just beginning to lighten, that deep indigo that comes before dawn, streaked with the thinnest lines of gold and rose. But there was also light emanating from him, soft but unmistakable, like moonlight reflecting off water. Jesus? My voice came out as a whisper, my throat suddenly dry. He turned to face me, and the expression on his face stopped my heart. I've played Jesus for years now. I've studied his compassion, his tenderness, his fierce love. But what I saw on his face that night was something I'd never fully grasped. Heartbreak combined with urgency. His eyes, I can't even describe them adequately, held both infinite sorrow and blazing intensity. Jonathan, he said, and his voice seemed to come from everywhere at once, from the rocks beneath my feet, from the wind that had stopped blowing, from inside my own chest. Do you know what day this is? It's December 24th, I stammered. Christmas Eve. The world celebrates my birth, he said, turning back toward the valley. They put up lights and exchange gifts and sing songs, but they have no idea what's coming. They have no idea that the next 5 days are critical. The sky was growing lighter now, the sunrise building slowly behind the mountain range to the east. I could start to make out details in the valley below, clusters of lights from small towns, the dark ribbon of a river, patches of forest. What do you mean? I asked, moving closer to him. What's happening in the next 5 days? He gestured toward the valley, and suddenly I wasn't just seeing it with my physical eyes. My vision expanded, deepened, and I could see into homes, into hearts. I could see a woman lying awake in bed, staring at the ceiling, wondering if her life mattered. I could see a man sitting in his car in a parking lot, a bottle of pills in his hand, trying to decide if he wanted to live another day. I could see teenagers scrolling through their phones at 3 a.m., desperate for connection, but finding only emptiness. I could see families gathering for Christmas, smiling for photos while harboring resentments and unforgiveness that had festered for years. These next 5 days, Jesus said, his voice heavy with emotion, are a convergence point, a moment when the veil between the eternal and the temporal is thinner than usual, a moment when hearts are more open, when people pause to consider spiritual things even if they've ignored me all year. But the enemy knows this too. He knows this is prime time for harvest, both for my kingdom and for his. The wind picked up again, but this time it wasn't the harsh, cutting wind from before. This was different, warmer. It carried scents I couldn't identify, something like incense, like flowers, like rain on dry ground. Most of my church, Jesus continued, and now his voice carried an edge that made me flinch, is celebrating without understanding. They're going through the motions. They're attending services and singing carols and posting about the reason for the season, but their hearts are far from me. They have no idea that right now, at this very moment, there are souls hanging in the balance, people who will make decisions in the next 5 days that will determine their eternity. And my people, my called, chosen, set-apart people, are asleep. I felt tears streaming down my face. The weight of what he was saying crashed over me like a wave. I don't understand, I said, my voice breaking. What are we supposed to do? What am I supposed to do? He turned to face me fully, and the light around him intensified. The sun was cresting the mountains now, sending shafts of golden light across the valley, and in that moment, with Jesus standing before me backlit by the sunrise, I understood for the first time what it meant that he is the light of the world. You're going to tell them, he said simply. You're going to sound the alarm. You're going to wake up my people so they can join me in the harvest of these 5 critical days. But Lord, I protested, I'm just an actor. I play you on a TV show. Who's going to listen to me? Who's going to believe? Stop. His word cut through my objections like a sword. Stop hiding behind false humility. Stop pretending you don't understand why I've given you a platform. Stop acting like you're not equipped for this moment. I didn't place you in front of millions of people by accident. I didn't give you the face that portrays my face to the world without purpose. You think The Chosen is just a show. You think it's just entertainment. I've been preparing you, training you, positioning you for such a time as this. The intensity of his words drove me to my knees on that rocky ground. Small stones dug into my kneecaps through my jeans, but I barely felt it. These next 5 days, Jesus continued, and now his voice softened, became almost tender, are unlike any 5 days that have come before. December 24th through December 28th, Christmas Eve through the 4th day of Christmas. 5 days when more people will be thinking about me, talking about me, wondering about me than any other time of the year. 5 days when families gather, when strangers are kinder to each other, when even the hardest hearts crack open just a little. But Jonathan, listen to me carefully. He knelt down in front of me, and when he took my face in his hands, I felt warmth flood through my entire body, from the crown of my head to the soles of my feet. The enemy has plans for these 5 days too. He wants to steal the moments of openness and fill them with distraction. He wants to take the crack in people's hearts and seal it shut with materialism, family drama, addiction, comparison, and despair. He wants to convince my people that their celebration is enough, that showing up to a Christmas service checks the box, that they can go back to sleep once the holiday is over. What do you want us to do? I whispered. Jesus released my face and stood, pulling me up with him. We stood together at the edge of that overlook, the sun now fully risen, painting everything gold and crimson and orange. The valley below was waking up. I could see smoke rising from chimneys, cars beginning to move on distant roads, lights turning on in windows. I want my people to understand that these 5 days are a battlefield, he said. Every conversation is an opportunity. Every family gathering is a mission field. Every encounter with a cashier, with a neighbor, with a stranger is a divine appointment. But most of my church will waste these 5 days on autopilot, going through their traditions without once stopping to ask me, who do you want me to reach? What do you want me to say? How can I be your hands and feet in these critical hours? A vision flashed before my eyes. I saw a man at a Christmas dinner, feeling out of place, feeling like he didn't belong. His sister had invited him even though they'd been estranged for 3 years. He was about to leave early, about to walk out and cut off that relationship permanently. But then I saw another person at that dinner, a cousin, suddenly feel a prompting to go talk to him, just to ask how he was doing, just to listen. And that simple act of obedience, that 5-minute conversation, became the turning point that eventually led that man back to Jesus. You see, Jesus said, that's what I'm talking about. That's the kind of divine appointment that happens when my people are awake and listening. But if that cousin had been too busy, too distracted, too focused on their own comfort, that man would have walked out and might never have walked into a church again. Another vision. I saw a woman working a retail shift on Christmas Eve, exhausted and underappreciated, when a customer stopped to truly see her, to speak life over her, to leave a tip that covered her rent. And that simple act of generosity, prompted by my spirit, reminded her that God saw her, that she mattered, that there was hope. 5 days, Jesus said again, 5 critical days, and I need every single person who calls themselves by my name to wake up and realize they're soldiers in a war for souls. Not 5 weeks, not 5 months, 5 days when the harvest is ripe and the laborers are few. The sun was fully up now, the valley completely visible. I could see the beauty of it, the patchwork of fields and forests, the glinting river, the mountains in the distance. But I could also see what Jesus saw, the millions of souls represented by every light, every home, every person waking up to start their day. Lord, I said, my voice stronger now, I'll tell them, I'll deliver this message, but what specifically do you want people to do? How do they wake up? How do they join you in this harvest? He smiled then, the first smile I'd seen from him that morning, and it was like the sun breaking through storm clouds. That's what I'm going to show you, he said. Come back here tomorrow night, same time. There's more you need to see, more you need to understand. The revelation I've given you tonight is just the beginning. Before I could respond, before I could ask another question, he was gone. The light faded, the charged atmosphere dissipated, and I was alone on that mountaintop with the morning sun warming my face and tears still wet on my cheeks. I don't know how long I stood there, 10 minutes, an hour. Time felt strange again. But when I finally turned to hike back down to my car, everything looked different. The rocks, the trees, the path. It was all the same, but I was seeing it with new eyes. Eyes that understood the weight of eternity. Eyes that recognized that every single day, every single moment is critical because souls hang in the balance. I'm recording this message because I was commanded to. Because you need to hear what I heard. Because we're in those 5 days right now, and most of us are asleep. So let me ask you, what are you doing with these 5 days? Are you going through the motions? Are you so caught up in the traditions and the gifts and the gatherings that you've forgotten to ask Jesus, what do you want me to do? Who do you want me to reach? This isn't just another inspirational Christmas message. This is a wake-up call. This is an alarm blaring in the middle of the night. These 5 days, December 24th through December 28th, are unlike any other. The veil is thin, hearts are open, divine appointments are everywhere, but you have to be awake to see them. You have to be listening to hear them. Tomorrow night, I'm going back to that mountaintop. Jesus told me there's more I need to see, more I need to understand, and I'll share it with you as soon as I can. But right now, today, I need you to stop. Put down whatever you're doing, turn off the noise, and ask Jesus one simple question. What do you want me to do in these 5 critical days? Then listen, and obey whatever he tells you, because I'm telling you, I'm warning you, we don't get these 5 days back. This window closes. This opportunity passes. Are you marked for this message? Are you one of the remnant who will wake up and join the harvest? Drop your answer in the comments. Tell me you're awake. Tell me you're listening. Tell me you're ready. It was December 25th, 2025 at 2:47 a.m., the exact same time as the night before, when I found myself driving back up that mountain road. But this time everything felt different. The air itself seemed heavier, charged with anticipation and something I can only describe as holy dread. I hadn't slept more than 20 minutes since returning from the first encounter. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw those visions. The woman staring at her ceiling, the man with the pills, the divine appointments that were being missed. And underneath it all, I felt Jesus waiting for me on that mountaintop, waiting to show me something that would change everything. The temperature had dropped even further, 29 degrees according to my car's display, and as I made the climb to the overlook, a thick fog had rolled in from the valley below. It swirled around my feet as I walked, illuminated by my flashlight beam, creating phantoms and shadows that disappeared as quickly as they formed. The sound was different too. Where the first night had been marked by wind and then sudden silence, this night was filled with distant sounds I couldn't quite identify, something like wind chimes, like whispers, like a great crowd murmuring just beyond the edge of hearing. When I reached the overlook, he was already there. But this time, Jesus wasn't standing calmly at the edge gazing at the valley. This time, he was pacing, actually pacing, back and forth along the rocky ledge, his movements agitated in a way that terrified me. I had never seen him like this, not in all my years of studying scripture, not in all my time portraying him. This was righteous anger mixed with grief so profound, it seemed to emanate from him in waves. "Lord?" I called out hesitantly, my breath creating clouds in the freezing air. He spun to face me, and I actually took a step backward. His eyes were blazing, not with condemnation toward me, but with a fire I couldn't fully comprehend. Behind him, the fog swirled and moved as if it were alive, and through it I could see flashes of light and shadow, images forming and dissolving. "Do you know what I've been watching all day, Jonathan?" His voice cracked with emotion. "Do you know what I witnessed on the day the world celebrates my birth?" I shook my head, unable to speak. "Come here," he commanded, gesturing me forward. "Come stand beside me and see what I see." I moved to his side, my legs shaking, partly from the cold, partly from fear, partly from the sheer weight of standing in his presence. The fog below us suddenly cleared, and once again my vision expanded beyond the natural. But this time, instead of seeing into individual homes, I saw the church, the global body of Christ, all across the world. "Look at my people," Jesus said, his voice breaking. "Look at them on Christmas Day." What I saw made me want to weep. I saw churches filled with people who showed up once a year, singing songs with their mouths while their hearts scrolled through mental to-do lists. I saw pastors going through sermons they'd preached a dozen times before, exhausted and burned out, going through the motions because that's what's expected. I saw families gathering around tables laden with food, arguing about politics and old grievances within minutes of saying grace. I saw believers posting scripture on social media while harboring unforgiveness toward their own family members sitting in the next room. But worst of all, and this is what made Jesus pace, what made his voice shake with emotion, I saw the missed opportunities, thousands of them, millions of them. "There," he said, pointing into the fog. An image crystallized before us, clear as if we were watching a movie. "Do you see that man? His name is Marcus. He's 37 years old. He came to his mother's house for Christmas dinner, even though he hasn't spoken to her in 2 years. His wife convinced him to come. He's sitting at that table right now, and his heart is so heavy he can barely breathe. His marriage is falling apart. His business is failing. He's been having thoughts of ending his life. And do you see his brother-in-law, the one sitting across from him?" I nodded, watching the scene unfold. "That's David. David is a believer. He's been going to church for 15 years. He felt a prompting 3 times during dinner to ask Marcus how he's really doing. 3 times my spirit nudged him to reach out, to show love, to be my hands and feet. And 3 times, David ignored it, because it was awkward, because he didn't want to make waves, because he was more concerned with keeping the peace than with obeying my voice. As I watched, Marcus stood up from the table, made an excuse about needing to take a work call, and walked out. But I could see, Jesus let me see, what was really happening. Marcus was walking to his car, sitting in the driver's seat, and the darkness around him was thick, suffocating, demonic presence, oppression so heavy it looked like black smoke filling that vehicle. "Stop!" I shouted as if I could actually intervene in the vision. "Someone stop him!" "They can't hear you," Jesus said quietly. "This already happened, hours ago. And David is inside finishing his pie. completely unaware that his moment of obedience could have saved his brother-in-law's life. Did Marcus? I couldn't finish the question. Not yet, Jesus said. He has 4 more days. 4 more chances for one of my people to wake up and listen to my voice. But Jonathan, do you understand what I'm showing you? Do you see why these 5 days are so critical? The vision shifted. Now I saw a woman named Sarah working at a convenience store on Christmas evening. She was tired, bitter, angry that she had to work while everyone else celebrated with their families, and I watched as customer after customer came through her line, including 3 believers who felt prompted to encourage her, to speak life over her, to leave a generous tip. 3 opportunities, and all 3 believers talked themselves out of it. It's awkward, I heard one think. I don't want to seem like I'm showing off. She probably gets that all the time, another reasoned. It would just be annoying. I'm already running late, the third justified. I'll pray for her later. But they never did pray for her, and Sarah finished her shift more bitter, more hardened, more convinced that no one saw her, no one cared, and God, if he existed, had certainly forgotten her. 5 days, Jesus said again, his voice rising. I'm giving my church 5 days when people's hearts are more open than usual. 5 days when even the most hardened person has a moment where they wonder if there's something more. 5 days when divine appointments are everywhere, when opportunities to demonstrate my love are literally standing in front of my people. And what are they doing? The fog swirled again, and now I saw montage after montage of missed opportunities. Believers too busy to stop and talk to the homeless man outside the shopping center. Christians scrolling past posts from hurting friends because they didn't want to get involved. Families so focused on their own celebrations that they ignored the elderly neighbor who spent Christmas alone. Churches so programmed and scheduled that there was no room for the Spirit to move, no space for real connection, no opportunity for genuine ministry. They're asleep, Jesus' voice boomed across the mountaintop, and suddenly the wind picked up, howling around us with such force I had to grab onto a nearby boulder to steady myself. The temperature seemed to plummet even further, and I could see my breath coming in rapid, panicked gasps. My people are asleep while the harvest rots in the field. They're going through their traditions while souls are dying. They're singing about peace on earth while their own families are torn apart by unforgiveness. They're celebrating my birth while refusing to let me live through them. Lightning flashed in the distance, though there hadn't been any clouds moments before. Thunder rumbled through the valley, and the fog began to churn violently. I fell to my knees again, overwhelmed by the intensity of his emotion. This wasn't the gentle Jesus of children's Bible stories. This was the Jesus who overturned tables in the temple. This was the Jesus who called the religious leaders whitewashed tombs. This was the Jesus who wept over Jerusalem because they didn't recognize the time of their visitation. I'm sorry, I sobbed, though I wasn't even sure what I was apologizing for. I'm sorry, Lord. What do we do? How do we wake up? The wind suddenly stopped, just as it had the night before. Jesus knelt beside me, placing his hand on my shoulder, and warmth flooded through me despite the freezing temperature. Do you want to know the real tragedy, Jonathan? His voice was gentle now, but somehow that made it even more heartbreaking. It's not that my people are incapable. It's not that they don't have the resources or the ability or the opportunity. It's that they've convinced themselves that their comfort is more important than their calling. They've believed the lie that being a Christian means showing up to church on Sunday and being a generally good person. They've forgotten that I didn't call them to comfort. I called them to a cross. Another vision formed, but this one was different. Instead of showing me what was happening, Jesus showed me what could happen, what should happen. I saw the same scene with Marcus and David, but this time David obeyed the prompting. He excused himself from the table, followed Marcus outside, and simply asked, "Hey man, how are you really doing?" And I watched as that simple question, asked with genuine care, broke through Marcus's walls. I saw him break down, saw him confess everything he was struggling with, saw David pray with him right there in the driveway, and I saw the darkness that had been surrounding Marcus shatter like glass, saw light pour in where there had been only shadow. That's what I want, Jesus said. That's what these 5 days are for. Not big programs, not massive events, just my people being awake and obedient to my voice, just believers taking 5 minutes to have a real conversation, just Christians choosing to be uncomfortable for the sake of reaching one soul. I saw the vision with Sarah again, but this time one of those believers stopped. She felt the prompting, and instead of talking herself out of it, she obeyed. She looked Sarah in the eye, said, "You matter and you're seen," and left a tip that covered 2 weeks of groceries. And I watched Sarah's face transform, watched tears fill her eyes, watched her pull out her phone after her shift and Google churches near me for the first time in 10 years. One moment of obedience, Jesus said. One person choosing to listen to my voice instead of their own comfort. That's all it takes. But Jonathan, my people have to understand. These opportunities have an expiration date. These 5 days will pass. Hearts that are cracked open right now will seal shut if no one reaches them. Divine appointments that are right in front of my people right now will disappear if they keep scrolling, keep staying busy, keep choosing comfort over calling. The sky was beginning to lighten now, that deep blue that comes before sunrise. I could see the landscape more clearly, jagged rocks jutting up from the mountaintop, scrubby vegetation clinging to impossible angles, the vast drop-off into the valley below. In the growing light, I could see that we weren't alone on that mountain. Eagles were circling overhead, their calls echoing across the peaks. Below us, a family of deer emerged from the tree line, moving through the fog like ghosts. "Look at creation," Jesus said, following my gaze. "The eagles hunt when the prey is vulnerable. The deer feed at dawn and dusk when the food is most accessible. All of creation understands timing, understands seasons, understands that there are critical windows that must not be missed. But my people, the ones I've filled with my spirit, the ones I've equipped with everything they need, they're oblivious to the season they're in. They don't recognize that right now, in these 5 days, the harvest is ripe, the timing is critical, the windows are open." He stood and walked to the very edge of the overlook. The sun was rising behind us now, casting long shadows across the valley. The fog was beginning to lift, revealing patches of land, clusters of homes, ribbons of roads. "Each light you see down there," Jesus said, "represents people, families, individuals who are right now in the middle of these 5 critical days. Some of them are celebrating, but underneath the celebration is pain. Some of them are alone, wondering if anyone cares. Some of them are at a crossroads, one decision away from either breakthrough or breakdown. And scattered among them are my people, believers who have the power to change everything if they would just wake up and listen." I stood and joined him at the edge, looking out at the valley as it woke up to another day. "I need you to understand something," Jesus continued. "This isn't just about reaching the lost, though that's critically important. This is also about my church rediscovering who they are. They've forgotten that they're warriors. They've forgotten that they're ambassadors. They've forgotten that every single one of them has been given authority and power and purpose. These 5 days are as much about waking up my people as they are about reaching the lost." A memory flashed through my mind, my own struggles with purpose, with identity, with wondering if I was making any real difference. Years of feeling like I was going through the motions, showing up to church, praying the right prayers, but never really engaging in the battle, never really stepping into the calling. I felt shame wash over me. "I've been asleep too, haven't I whispered. Jesus turned to look at me, and his eyes were filled with such love it nearly brought me to my knees again. "You're waking up now," he said gently. "That's what matters. You're here. You're listening. You're allowing me to break your heart with the things that break mine. But Jonathan, I need you to be honest with the people who are watching. I need you to be vulnerable, because there are thousands, millions who are just like you, who've been going through the motions, who've been playing it safe, who've been more concerned with their comfort than with my commission, and they need to know that it's not too late. They need to know that waking up is still possible." The sun cleared the horizon fully now, flooding the valley with golden light. The fog retreated, the shadows fled, and everything became clear and sharp and beautiful. "This is what dawn looks like," Jesus said. "This is what waking up feels like when you stop going through the motions and start walking in your calling. When you stop ignoring my voice and start obeying immediately. When you stop choosing comfort and start choosing the cross. Everything becomes clear. Everything becomes purposeful. Everything matters." He turned to face me fully, placing both hands on my shoulders. "Tomorrow night, I'm going to show you what happens if my people don't wake up. I'm going to show you the consequences of staying asleep. And it won't be easy to see, but you need to see it, and they need to hear it. Because these 5 days are slipping away. We're already in day 2, 3 days remain, and every hour that passes, opportunities are being missed, divine appointments are being ignored, souls are slipping through the cracks. I'll be here," I said firmly. "Whatever you need to show me, I'll be here." "I know you will," he said with a sad smile. "But will they? Will the people watching this wake up? Will they stop scrolling long enough to let this message sink in? Will they allow me to break their hearts and redirect their steps? Or will they watch this like entertainment, feel momentarily inspired, and then go right back to sleep? Before I could answer, he was gone again. The presence lifted, the atmosphere returned to normal, and I was alone on that mountain top with the sun warming my face and my mind reeling from everything I'd seen. I stood there for almost an hour, watching the valley come to life. Cars on roads, smoke from chimneys. The day beginning for millions of people who had no idea what Jesus had just shown me. No idea that they were in the middle of 5 critical days. No idea that divine appointments were waiting for them if they would just wake up and listen. So let me ask you directly, are you awake yet? I mean really awake, not just intellectually agreeing with what I'm saying, not just feeling momentarily inspired, but actually, genuinely, radically awakened to the reality that you are in day 2 of 5 critical days, that right now, today, there are divine appointments with your name on them, that someone in your sphere of influence, your family, your workplace, your neighborhood, is supposed to encounter Jesus through you in these next 3 days. But here's what I need you to hear. You can't fulfill your divine appointments on autopilot. You can't reach the people you're called to reach while you're still asleep. You have to make a choice right now, today, to wake up, to tune in, to listen for his voice above all the noise and chaos and busyness of these days. I want you to do something practical right now. Stop whatever you're doing, turn off the distractions, and ask Jesus this question: who do you want me to reach today? What divine appointment have you set up for me? Then write down whatever comes to mind. Don't dismiss it. Don't rationalize it away. Don't convince yourself it's just your imagination. Write it down and obey it. Maybe it's a phone call you need to make. Maybe it's a conversation you need to have. Maybe it's a person you need to reach out to. Maybe it's a cashier you need to encourage. Maybe it's a family member you need to forgive. Maybe it's a neighbor you need to check on. Whatever it is, obey it today. Don't wait. Don't put it off, because these 5 days are ticking away and we don't get them back. Tomorrow night, night 3, I'm going back to that mountaintop. And Jesus said he's going to show me what happens if we don't wake up, the consequences of staying asleep. I'm not going to lie to you. I'm terrified of what I'm going to see, but I'll be there, and I'll share it with you. The question is, will you still be listening, or will you have gone back to sleep? Drop a comment if you're awake. Tell me what divine appointment you're going to pursue today. Tell me you're choosing obedience over comfort. Tell me you're one of the remnant who refuses to waste these critical days. We have 3 days left. 3 days. Don't waste them. It was December 26th, 2025 at 2:47 a.m. when I made the climb up that mountain for the 3rd consecutive night. But this time my hands were shaking so badly I could barely grip the steering wheel. I hadn't eaten in nearly 24 hours. The thought of food made me nauseous. Everything Jesus had shown me over the past 2 nights had burrowed so deep into my soul that I felt physically ill. But it was more than that. As I drove up that winding mountain road in the pitch darkness, I felt something I can only describe as cosmic dread, the kind of fear that goes beyond natural circumstances, the kind of knowing that what you're about to witness will mark you forever. The temperature had risen slightly, 42 degrees, but a storm was building. I could feel it in the air, could see flashes of lightning illuminating distant peaks. The wind had returned with a vengeance, bending trees at impossible angles, sending debris skittering across the road. My weather app had shown clear skies, but nature itself seemed to be responding to something beyond meteorology. As I hiked that half-mile trail to the overlook, the wind howled around me like something alive, and twice I almost turned back. Almost convinced myself I'd imagined the previous 2 nights. Almost talked myself into the comfort of denial. But I didn't turn back. When I reached the overlook, the scene before me stopped my heart. Jesus was standing at the absolute edge of the precipice, his arms outstretched like he was on the cross, and around him the storm was raging with supernatural intensity. Lightning cracked across the sky, not distant anymore, but right overhead, so close I could smell ozone, so bright it left after images burned into my retinas. Thunder shook the ground beneath my feet, and the wind was so strong I had to crouch low and grab onto rocks to keep from being blown backward. But here's what terrified me most. Jesus was weeping, not quiet tears, not gentle sadness. He was weeping with such anguished intensity that his whole body shook with it, and the sound, oh God, the sound, it was like the earth itself was mourning, like creation was groaning under the weight of his grief. Lord, I shouted over the wind, crawling forward on my hands and knees because I couldn't stand upright. What's happening? What's wrong? He didn't turn to look at me. His gaze was fixed on the valley below, and when he spoke, his voice cut through the storm with terrible clarity. Day 3, Jonathan. We're in day 3 of 5. And do you know how many of my people woke up? Do you know how many took yesterday's message to heart and actually changed their behavior? I couldn't answer. I was weeping too now, though I didn't fully understand why yet. A fraction, he said, his voice breaking. A tiny, pitiful fraction. The rest watched. They listened. Some even felt convicted. But then they went right back to sleep. They chose comfort over calling. They chose their plans over my purposes. They chose themselves over the souls I placed in their path. Lightning struck so close I felt the heat of it, and in that flash of brilliant light, the valley below became visible. But it wasn't the normal valley I'd seen the previous 2 nights. This was something else entirely. This was what Jesus saw, what he sees every moment of every day. The valley was filled with people, but they weren't in their homes anymore. They were standing in a vast, dark plain that stretched to the horizon, and they were divided into 2 groups. One group was moving toward a light in the distance, following what looked like a narrow path that wound through treacherous terrain, but the other group, the much larger group, was moving in the opposite direction, toward darkness so thick it looked solid, and the sound coming from that darkness made my blood run cold, weeping, wailing, gnashing of teeth. "No," I whispered. "No, please, Lord." "You need to see this," Jesus said, his voice firm despite his tears. "You need to see what's at stake. You need to understand why these 5 days matter, because my people think it's all abstract. They think eternity is some distant concept that doesn't really affect their daily decisions. They think they have all the time in the world to obey me, to reach the lost, to step into their calling. But Jonathan, look at what's really happening." He gestured, and suddenly I was seeing individual faces in that crowd moving toward darkness, and I recognized them. Some of them were from the visions he'd shown me before. Marcus, the suicidal man whose brother-in-law had ignored the prompting. Sarah, the convenience store worker whom no one had encouraged. But there were others too, so many others. I saw a teenage girl who'd spent Christmas Day scrolling through social media, comparing her life to everyone else's highlight reels. The seeds of depression and eating disorders taking root in her heart because no one, not one believer in her life, had taken the time to speak truth and life over her. I saw an elderly man who'd spent the holiday alone in a nursing home, staring at his phone waiting for a call that never came, his heart hardening with bitterness and resentment because the Christians in his family were too busy with their own celebrations to visit him. I saw a young couple whose marriage was imploding, who'd gotten in a massive fight on Christmas Day, and the wife had felt prompted to reach out to a Christian friend for help. She'd typed out the text 3 times but never sent it because she was afraid of being judged, and the friend who'd felt a prompting to check on her had ignored it because it was awkward and she didn't want to intrude. "Stop!" I screamed. "Please stop! I can't bear this!" "You think you can't bear it?" Jesus spun to face me, and the expression on his face was so intense I fell backward. "I've been bearing this for 2,000 years. I died for every single one of those souls. I paid the price for their redemption. I made a way for them to escape that darkness, and I placed my people, my called, chosen, equipped people, right in their paths to show them the way. But my people are asleep." The storm intensified impossibly. Rain began falling in sheets so heavy I couldn't see more than a few feet in front of me. The wind screamed. The lightning was constant now, turning night into flickering daylight. "Do you want to know the real tragedy?" Jesus continued, his voice rising above the storm. "It's not just that souls are being lost. It's that my people are losing their own souls in the process. They think they're saved because they prayed a prayer once. They think they're secure because they attend church and believe the right doctrines. But I told them clearly, not everyone who says to me, 'Lord, Lord,' will enter the kingdom of heaven, but only the one who does the will of my Father who is in heaven." He gestured again, and the vision shifted. Now I was seeing into churches, thousands of them all across the world. And inside those churches were people who looked like believers. They sang the songs. They raised their hands in worship. They knew the right words to say. But Jesus showed me their hearts, and what I saw made me want to vomit. Hearts filled with pride, with selfishness, with unforgiveness, with lust, with greed, with apathy. People going through the motions of Christianity, while having no relationship with Christ. People who'd made Jesus their Savior but refused to make him their Lord. People who wanted the benefits of salvation without the cost of discipleship. "I never knew you," Jesus said, quoting his own words from Matthew 7. That's what I'll say to so many of them on that day. Not because I didn't die for them, not because I didn't call them, but because they never truly knew me. They knew about me, they knew the doctrine, they knew the religious system, but they never surrendered. They never died to themselves. They never took up their cross and followed me. "Lord," I gasped, rain streaming down my face, mixing with my tears. "What about me? Am I truly known by you? Or am I just playing a role? I've literally played you for years, but do I actually know you?" The question hung in the air between us, and for a moment I thought he wouldn't answer. The storm continued to rage, the lightning continued to flash, and I knelt there on that rain-soaked mountaintop, more terrified than I'd ever been in my life. Then Jesus knelt in front of me just as he had the first night, and took my face in his hands. "Jonathan," he said gently, "the very fact that you're asking that question, the very fact that you're here, that you're allowing me to break your heart, that you're willing to be uncomfortable and terrified and wrecked, that tells me you're waking up. You're not there yet. None of my people are fully there yet. But you're waking up, and that's what I need. I don't need perfection. I need people who are willing to wake up and stay awake." Relief flooded through me, but it was short-lived because the vision hadn't ended. The storm hadn't abated. There was more he needed to show me. "Stand up," he commanded, pulling me to my feet. "There's something else you need to see. The worst part." "There's worse than this?" My voice was barely a whisper. He didn't answer. Instead, he pointed to the valley again, and the vision changed one more time. Now I was seeing the believers, the ones who were genuinely saved, who did know him, but who were living in comfortable complacency. And Jesus showed me the consequences of their choices to stay asleep during these 5 critical days. I saw David, the brother-in-law who'd ignored the prompting to reach out to Marcus. David was a true believer. He loved Jesus. But because he'd chosen comfort over obedience, Marcus had attempted suicide on the night of December 25th. He'd survived, barely, but the damage was done. His family was devastated. His children were traumatized. And David would spend the rest of his life wondering, what if I had just obeyed? What if I had just asked him how he was really doing? I saw the believer who'd felt prompted to encourage Sarah at the convenience store. She was a genuine Christian, active in her church, generous with her resources, but because she'd talked herself out of that 5-minute interaction, Sarah had gone home that night more bitter and hardened than ever. And 6 months later, when tragedy struck Sarah's life, she would turn to substances instead of to God because she'd become convinced that no one saw her, no one cared, and God, if he existed, had forgotten her. "Do you understand?" Jesus asked, his voice heavy with sorrow. "Even when believers stay saved, their disobedience has consequences, real, eternal consequences. Souls that could have been reached slip through the cracks, opportunities that will never come again are lost forever, and my people carry the weight of what if for the rest of their lives." The eastern horizon was beginning to lighten now, the first hints of dawn breaking through the storm, but instead of the beautiful sunrise I'd witnessed the previous mornings, this sunrise was strange, blood red, almost angry looking, streaking the sky with crimson and deep purple. 3 days remain, Jesus said, his voice taking on a tone of terrible finality. December 26th is ending. December 27th, 28th, and 29th are all that's left of this critical window. Hearts that are open right now will close. Opportunities that exist today will vanish. Divine appointments that are scheduled for the next 72 hours will be missed forever if my people don't wake up now. He turned to face me fully, and the storm suddenly stopped. Completely. The wind died, the rain ceased, the lightning flickered out. The silence that followed was deafening. "This is the word I need you to deliver," Jesus said, and his voice was steady now, authoritative, the voice of a king issuing a decree. "To every person who calls themselves by my name, you don't have time to waste anymore. You don't have the luxury of putting off obedience until it's convenient. You don't get to choose comfort over calling. These next 3 days will reveal what's really in your heart. These next 3 days will show whether you're truly mine or just playing church." He began walking around the perimeter of the overlook, and I followed, my clothes soaked, my body exhausted, but my spirit more alert than it had ever been. "Here's what I'm requiring," Jesus continued. "For the next 3 days, December 27th, 28th, and 29th, every single one of my people must do 3 things. First, Start each day by asking me, who do you want me to reach today? Not rushing through a quick prayer and then going about your plans. Actually waiting, actually listening, actually writing down what I tell you and then obeying it immediately. The sky continued to lighten, and I could see the valley more clearly now. The vision had faded, but the memory of it was seared into my mind. Second, Jesus said, I need my people to have at least one genuine, deep conversation each day, not surface-level pleasantries, not small talk about weather and sports. A real conversation where you ask someone how they're really doing and then actually listen to the answer, where you're willing to be uncomfortable, where you're willing to invest time and emotional energy. He stopped walking and looked directly at me. And third, I need them to obey every prompting of my spirit immediately. Not, I'll do it later. Not, that's awkward. Not, what will people think? Immediate obedience. When they feel prompted to encourage someone, do it. When they feel prompted to give, do it. When they feel prompted to pray with someone, do it. When they feel prompted to reach out to someone they haven't talked to in years, do it. 3 days of radical, immediate obedience. And if they don't? I asked, though I was afraid of the answer. Jesus' expression was grave. Then they'll miss the harvest I've prepared for them. They'll wake up on December 30th and realize that the window has closed, that the opportunities are gone, that souls who could have been reached are now harder, more closed off, more resistant than they were before, and they'll have to live with the consequences of their choice to stay comfortable instead of becoming obedient. The sun broke over the horizon fully now, and despite the ominous red color, it was still magnificent. Light flooded across the valley, illuminating everything, chasing away the shadows. But here's the promise, Jesus said, and for the first time that night I heard hope in his voice. For those who do wake up, for those who do obey, they're going to see miracles, they're going to witness breakthrough, they're going to be part of the greatest harvest this generation has ever seen, because I'm not asking them to do this in their own strength. I'm empowering them with my spirit. I'm opening doors that no one can shut. I'm orchestrating divine appointments that will change lives forever. He placed his hand on my shoulder, and warmth flooded through my exhausted body. Tomorrow night, the final night, I'm going to show you the victory. I'm going to show you what happens when my people wake up and obey. I'm going to show you the other side of this story. But tonight, I needed you to see the stakes. I needed you to understand the cost of staying asleep. Because too many of my people think their choices don't matter. Too many think they can drift through life without consequences. Too many have believed the lie that mediocre Christianity is acceptable. It's not, I said, finally understanding. It's not, he confirmed. I didn't die for mediocrity. I didn't pay the ultimate price so my people could live comfortable, self-focused lives. I died to set them free. Free from sin, yes, but also free from themselves. Free to become who I created them to be. Free to step into the calling and purpose I've had for them since before the foundation of the world. Before I could respond, he was gone. The presence lifted, and I collapsed onto the wet rocks, my body shaking with exhaustion and emotion. I lay there for nearly an hour as the sun rose higher, watching the valley come to life, knowing that down there millions of people were waking up today, 3 of 5 critical days. How many would waste it? How many would miss their divine appointments? How many would choose comfort over calling? And how many, please God, how many would wake up and obey? I'm sharing this with you because you need to hear it. You need to understand that what I saw on that mountaintop wasn't entertainment. It wasn't a storyline. It was reality. The eternal reality that most of us insulate ourselves from because it's too uncomfortable to face. But we're in day 3 now. 3 days remain, and you have a choice to make. Are you going to implement those 3 requirements Jesus gave? Are you going to start each morning asking who he wants you to reach? Are you going to have real conversations? Are you going to obey every prompting immediately? Or are you going to let these critical days slip through your fingers while you stay comfortable, stay busy, stay asleep? I'm begging you, and I don't use that word lightly, I'm begging you to wake up, right now, today. Don't wait until tomorrow. Don't wait until it's more convenient. Don't wait until you feel ready. You have 3 days, 72 hours, that's all. What are you going to do with them? Drop a comment and tell me. Tell me you're committing to those 3 things for the next 3 days. Tell me you're choosing obedience over comfort. Tell me you're going to be part of the harvest instead of a spectator. Tomorrow night is the final message, the final encounter. Jesus said he's going to show me the victory, and I'll share every detail with you. But that's tomorrow. Today, right now, you have a choice to make. Choose wisely. The clock is ticking. I'm recording this on December 27th, 2025 at 9:23 a.m. just hours after returning from the fourth and final encounter on that mountaintop. My hands are still shaking, not from fear this time, but from overwhelming awe, from joy so profound I can barely contain it, from witnessing something so beautiful, so powerful, so world-changing that I know I'll never be the same, and neither will you if you let this message penetrate your heart. But before I tell you about last night, I need to share what happened in the hours between the third and fourth encounters, because it's crucial, because it proves everything Jesus told me. After I came down from the mountain on the morning of December 26th, after witnessing the heartbreak, the lost opportunities, the consequences of staying asleep, I couldn't just go home and rest. I was wrecked, completely undone. So I did something I hadn't done in years. I drove to a diner, sat in a corner booth, and I waited. I asked Jesus, "Who do you want me to reach? What divine appointment have you set up for me?" And I listened. Within minutes, a waitress approached my table. Her name tag said Linda. She looked exhausted, dark circles under her eyes, shoulders slumped, moving through her shift like a robot. And I felt it, that unmistakable prompting, that gentle but firm nudge of the Holy Spirit that said, "Her, talk to her." Every part of my flesh wanted to resist. I was exhausted. I was emotionally drained. I didn't want to be awkward. I didn't know what to say, but I remembered what I'd seen just hours before. Marcus, Sarah, all those missed opportunities. And I remembered Jesus' requirement, immediate obedience. So when Linda came back to refill my coffee, I looked her in the eye and said, "I know this might sound strange, but I feel like I'm supposed to tell you that you matter, that you're seen, and that God hasn't forgotten you." I will never forget what happened next. This woman, this complete stranger, burst into tears right there beside my table. Her hand started shaking so badly she had to set the coffee pot down. And through her sobs, she told me that just that morning, she'd been in her car in the parking lot before her shift, seriously contemplating ending her life. She'd lost her husband 6 months ago. Her adult son wasn't speaking to her. She was drowning in medical debt, and she'd prayed for the first time in years. She'd prayed, "God, if you're real, if you see me, send me a sign today, because I can't do this anymore." That 5-minute conversation turned into 30 minutes. I sat with her during her break. I listened to her story. I prayed with her. I gave her information for a local church that has grief support groups. And when I left that diner, Linda was smiling through her tears, clutching a napkin where I'd written down Jeremiah 29:11. "For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans to prosper you and not to harm you, plans to give you hope and a future." One moment of obedience, one divine appointment, one life potentially saved from the brink of suicide. That's what's possible when we wake up. But it didn't stop there. Later that same day, I was at a grocery store, just picking up a few things, when I felt another prompting. There was a young man, maybe 19 or 20, standing in the checkout line ahead of me. His card was declined. He was counting out change, clearly embarrassed, clearly struggling, and I heard it again. Pay for his groceries. Again, the flesh resisted. What if he's offended? What if it's weird? What if... Immediate obedience. I stepped forward and told the cashier to add his items to my bill. The young man tried to protest, but I just said, "Merry Christmas. Someone did something kind for me once when I needed it. Just pass it on someday." He thanked me, we exchanged a few words, and he left. I didn't think much more about it. But here's what I found out later, and this is why I'm sharing this. That young man's name is Tyler. And that night, December 26th, Tyler posted on social media about what happened. He wrote, "A stranger paid for my groceries today when my card was declined. I've been having the worst week of my life. I've been questioning everything, whether I matter, whether anyone cares, whether there's any point in going on. But this simple act of kindness from a complete stranger reminded me that maybe there are still good people in the world. Maybe there's still hope. I don't know if that guy will ever see this, but thank you. You might have literally saved my life today." 2 divine appointments, 2 lives touched, 2 souls pulled back from the brink, all in one day, all because I chose obedience over comfort. And I'm not special. I'm not more anointed than you. I'm not more equipped. I simply obeyed. And that's exactly what Jesus wanted to show me on the 4th night. It was December 27th, 2025 at 2:47 a.m. when I made the final climb up that mountain. The weather had completely transformed. The storm was gone. The air was crisp and clear, 36 degrees, and the sky was filled with more stars than I'd ever seen in my life. The Milky Way stretched overhead like a river of light, and the moon, nearly full, illuminated the path so clearly I barely needed my flashlight. Everything felt different, lighter. charged with anticipation rather than dread. Even the sounds were different. Instead of ominous wind and thunder, I heard the gentle rustle of pine trees, the distant call of an owl, the crunch of frost beneath my boots. When I reached the overlook, Jesus was already there. But this time he wasn't pacing or weeping or standing at the edge in anguish. This time he was sitting on a large, flat boulder, and he was smiling. Actually smiling, and the light emanating from him was warm, golden, inviting, like the first rays of sunrise after a long, dark night. "Jonathan," he said, gesturing for me to join him. "Come sit with me. I want to show you something beautiful." I sat beside him on that boulder, and the warmth radiating from his presence drove away the December chill. We sat in comfortable silence for a moment, just gazing out at the valley below, at the millions of lights twinkling in the darkness, at the vast expanse of creation spread out before us. "Do you know what I've been watching today?" Jesus asked, his voice filled with joy. "Do you know what I've witnessed in the past 24 hours? I shook my head, afraid to hope. Awakening," he said simply. "A genuine, Holy Spirit-powered awakening. All across the world, my people have been waking up. Not all of them, not even most of them, but thousands, tens of thousands, maybe more. People who heard the message, people who felt the conviction, people who chose to obey." He gestured toward the valley, and once again my vision expanded. But this time, instead of seeing heartbreak and missed opportunities, I saw miracles. I saw divine appointments being kept. I saw the harvest Jesus had promised. I saw a woman named Rebecca who'd been estranged from her daughter for 8 years. On the morning of December 26th, Rebecca woke up and asked Jesus who he wanted her to reach, and she heard, clear as day, "Call your daughter." She'd been resisting for years, pride, hurt, stubbornness. But this time, she obeyed immediately. She called. Her daughter answered. And through tears, they began the process of reconciliation that would eventually lead the daughter back to faith and restore their family. I saw a man named James who felt prompted to check on his elderly neighbor, a man he barely knew, who'd always seemed grumpy and unapproachable. James ignored his discomfort and knocked on the door. The elderly man, whose name was Frank, invited him in, and James discovered that Frank was a veteran who'd lost his entire family and had been living in isolation for 15 years. That one visit turned into a friendship, and 3 days later, on December 29th, James would lead Frank to Christ in his living room, and Frank would die peacefully 2 weeks later with the assurance of salvation. I saw a teenage girl named Alyssa who'd been scrolling through social media when she felt prompted to reach out to a classmate who'd been bullied. She obeyed. She sent a message saying, "I see you. You matter. I'm here if you ever need to talk." And that classmate who'd been planning to hurt herself broke down and confided in Alyssa. Alyssa got her connected with help, with her youth pastor, with resources, and a life was saved. Vision after vision after vision, divine appointment after divine appointment after divine appointment. The harvest Jesus had promised was happening right before my eyes. "Do you see?" Jesus asked, his voice thick with emotion. But this time it was emotion of joy, of pride, of delight. "This is what happens when my people wake up. This is what happens when they choose obedience over comfort. This is what happens when they partner with me in the harvest. One person obeys, and it creates a ripple effect. Rebecca's reconciliation with her daughter will impact her grandchildren. James's friendship with Frank will inspire others in his church to reach out to isolated elderly people. Alyssa's courage will embolden other teenagers to stand against bullying and reach hurting peers." Tears were streaming down my face, but these were tears of joy, of hope, of witnessing the kingdom of God breaking into the darkness. "And Jonathan," Jesus said, turning to look at me, "your obedience with Linda and Tyler, those ripples are just beginning. Linda went home and called her son. They're talking again. She's going to that church. She's going to get help, and she's going to become a light in that diner, reaching other hurting people because someone reached her. And Tyler, he's going to remember that moment for the rest of his life. And someday, when he's in a position to help someone else, he's going to remember the stranger who showed him kindness, and he's going to pass it on." The sky was beginning to lighten now, the first hints of dawn on the 4th day. But unlike the ominous red sunrise from the previous morning, this sunrise was glorious, gold and pink and orange streaking across the horizon, turning the scattered clouds into a masterpiece. "This is what I died for," Jesus said softly. not just to save souls, though that's critically important, but to restore people to their purpose, to wake them up to their calling, to show them that they were created for so much more than comfortable, self-focused lives. Every single believer has been equipped and empowered to be my hands and feet in this world. Every single believer has divine appointments waiting for them. Every single believer has the opportunity to participate in the harvest, but they have to choose it. They have to wake up and obey. He stood and walked to the edge of the overlook, arms spread wide as if embracing the entire valley below. 2 days remain, he said, December 28th and 29th. 2 more days of this critical window. And here's what I'm declaring. For every believer who has already woken up and obeyed, I'm going to give them even more opportunities. The divine appointments are going to multiply. The harvest is going to increase. And for those who are still asleep, those who are still watching from the sidelines, still choosing comfort, still making excuses, this is their final warning. The window is closing. Hearts that are open now will not stay open forever. Opportunities that exist today will not exist on December 30th. The sun broke over the horizon fully now, flooding the valley with brilliant light. And in that moment, I saw something that took my breath away. The valley below wasn't just reflecting the sunrise, it was glowing with its own light, millions of tiny lights like candles or stars scattered across the landscape, and I understood these were the believers who were awake, the ones who were obeying, the ones who were participating in the harvest. And they were everywhere, in every town, every neighborhood, every corner of the visible world. Not a majority, but a remnant, a faithful, obedient, world-changing remnant. This is my church, Jesus said, his voice ringing with authority and triumph. Not the buildings, not the programs, not the institutions. This is my true church, the ones who hear my voice and obey, the ones who take up their cross daily and follow me, the ones who understand that being a Christian isn't about comfort and convenience, but about dying to self and living for my kingdom. He turned back to me, and his eyes were blazing with holy fire. Here's the final message I need you to deliver, he said. For the next 2 days, 48 hours, I'm issuing a challenge to every person who calls themselves by my name. I'm calling for 30 minutes, just 30 minutes each day. 30 minutes where you turn off every distraction, silence your phone, get away from the noise, and you sit with me. You ask me 3 questions. First, who do you want me to reach today? Second, what do you want me to say or do? And third, what's one thing in my life that's keeping me asleep that I need to surrender? 30 minutes, I repeated, making sure I understood. 30 minutes of focused, intentional time with me, not rushed prayer while you're getting ready for work, not distracted devotional reading while you're scrolling through your phone. 30 minutes of undivided attention, and then for the rest of that day, immediate obedience to whatever I tell you. If I prompt you to reach out to someone, do it immediately. If I prompt you to give, do it immediately. If I prompt you to have a difficult conversation, do it immediately. 2 days of radical focus and radical obedience. And if they do this, I asked, what happens? Jesus smiled, and it was the most beautiful thing I'd ever seen. If they do this, if they truly commit to these 2 days, they will never be the same. They'll experience breakthrough in areas where they've been stuck for years. They'll see miracles. They'll witness salvations. They'll feel the joy of partnering with me in the harvest. And most importantly, they'll finally understand what they were created for. They'll taste what it means to live fully alive, fully awake, fully engaged in the kingdom work I've called them to. The sun was fully risen now, the new day begun. Birds were singing in the trees around us, the frost was melting. Everything felt new, clean, full of possibility. But there's a deadline, Jesus said, his tone becoming serious again. January 26, 2026. Exactly 30 days from when you received the first message on December 27th. For 30 days, I want my people practicing this rhythm, 30 minutes a day with me, immediate obedience throughout the day, for 30 days. And on January 26th, I want them to reflect back and see how their lives have transformed, how their relationships have healed, how their purpose has clarified, how their intimacy with me has deepened. What if they start, but then quit? I asked. What if they make it a few days and then fall back asleep? Then they'll experience exactly what they've always experienced, Jesus said sadly. Mediocrity, spiritual lethargy, a life that looks Christian on the outside but lacks the power and purpose I intended. But Jonathan, here's what I want you to emphasize. It's never too late to wake up. Even if someone watches this message on day 4 or day 5, even if they've already missed opportunities, even if they've been asleep for years, the moment they choose to wake up and obey, I will meet them. I will give them new divine appointments. I will redeem the time they've lost. He placed both hands on my shoulders, just as he had on previous nights, and looked directly into my eyes. "You've been faithful," he said. "You came every night even when you were terrified. You listened even when the message was hard. You obeyed with Linda and Tyler even when it was uncomfortable. This is what I need from all my people. Not perfection, not having it all figured out, just willingness, just obedience, just a heart that says, 'Yes, Lord, I'll go. I'll speak. I'll give. I'll reach. Whatever you ask, I'll do it.'" "I promise," I whispered. "I promise I'll keep doing it. Not just for these 5 days, but for the rest of my life." "I know you will," he said with a smile. "And that's why I chose you to deliver this message, because it's not just words to you anymore. It's become your life, your calling, your purpose." And then, for the final time, he was gone. The presence lifted, the supernatural atmosphere faded, and I was alone on that mountaintop with the morning sun warming my face and my heart fuller than it had ever been. I sat on that boulder for another 2 hours, just soaking in what I'd witnessed, just processing the magnitude of what Jesus had shown me over those 4 nights, just committing in my heart to live differently, to stay awake, to never go back to the comfortable complacency I'd been living in before. When I finally hiked back down to my car, I drove back to that diner. Linda was working again, and when she saw me, her entire face lit up. She came over during her break and told me she'd called her son, told me she'd gone to that church, told me that for the first time in 6 months, she felt hope. She hugged me with tears in her eyes and said, "You were the sign I asked God for. You saved my life." But I didn't save her life, Jesus did. I was just willing to be obedient, and that's what I'm asking you to be. You've heard the message now, all 4 parts. You've seen the urgency. You've witnessed the heartbreak of missed opportunities and the beauty of obedience. You've heard the challenge, 30 minutes a day for the next 30 days, ending on January 26th, 2026. 30 minutes of focused time with Jesus, asking those 3 questions, and then immediate obedience throughout the day. So here's my question to you. Will you do it? Not "I'll try," not "that sounds nice." Will you commit right now, today, to this 30-day challenge? Here's what I want you to do practically. Step 1. Set a specific time each day for your 30 minutes with Jesus. Put it in your calendar. Treat it like the most important appointment of your day, because it is. Step 2. Get a journal or notebook. Write down the 3 questions every day. Who do you want me to reach? What do you want me to say or do? What's keeping me asleep that I need to surrender? Then write down whatever comes to mind as you pray and listen. Step 3. Throughout the day, practice immediate obedience. When you feel a prompting, no matter how small, no matter how awkward, obey it immediately. Text that person, make that call, give that gift, have that conversation, speak that encouragement. Do it right away before you can talk yourself out of it. Step 4. At the end of each day, write down what happened. What divine appointments did you experience? What did you witness? How did God show up? Keep a record so that on January 26th, you can look back and see the transformation. Step 5. Share this message. I'm serious about this. The enemy doesn't want people to hear what I've shared. He wants them to stay asleep, stay comfortable, stay ineffective. But you've been marked to hear this message, and you've been marked to share it. Post it. Send it to friends. Share it in your small group. Get this message to as many people as possible because we're running out of time. We have 2 days left in this critical 5-day window, December 28th and 29th. 2 more days when hearts are open, when opportunities abound, when the harvest is ripe. Don't waste them. And then, starting December 30th, you have 30 days to practice this new rhythm. 30 days to experience what it means to live fully awake, fully obedient, fully alive in Christ. I'm doing this challenge alongside you. Every single day for the next 30 days, I'll be spending my 30 minutes with Jesus, asking those 3 questions and obeying immediately. And I'm going to share updates along the way about what I'm witnessing, what divine appointments I'm experiencing, how my life is transforming. This isn't just another inspirational video that you watch and forget. This is a call to arms. This is a wake-up alarm. This is your invitation to step into the life you were created for. But you have to choose it. You have to say yes. You have to be willing to be uncomfortable, to be obedient, to be used by God in ways you never imagined. So I'm asking you one final time. Are you in? Drop a comment right now. Say, "I'm in." Say, "I commit." Say, "I'm awake and I'm staying awake." Tell me you're going to do this 30-day challenge. Tell me you're going to spend the next 2 critical days in radical obedience. Tell me you're part of the remnant that refuses to stay asleep while the harvest is ready, and then do it. Don't just comment and forget. Actually do it. Set that alarm. Buy that journal. Clear that time in your schedule. Ask those questions. Obey those promptings. Your life will never be the same. The lives of people around you will never be the same. And on January 26, 2026, you'll look back at these 30 days and realize that this was the moment everything changed. This was when you woke up. This was when you stepped into your calling. This was when you finally understood what you were created for. The mountaintop is behind me now. The 4 encounters are complete. The message has been delivered, but the harvest is just beginning. And you, yes, you, have been chosen to be part of it. Don't miss it. Don't waste it. Don't stay asleep one more day. The next 2 days are still critical. The next 30 days are transformational. And the rest of your life depends on the choice you make right now. Wake up, stay awake, and join the harvest. I'll see you in the comments. I'll see you in the testimonies. I'll see you in the stories of divine appointments and transformed lives. Because this is what we were made for. This is kingdom work. This is the life Jesus died to give us. And it starts right now. Are you ready?